meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. I am upset because I see a meaningless world. A meaningless world engenders fear, engenders fear. God did not create a meaningless world. My thoughts are images that I have made. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today and studying A Course in Miracles here in the Rocky Mountains right outside of Frisco, Colorado. I'm Forgiveness Willie, teaching forgiveness from the Ozarks, but here we are teaching it from the Rocky Mountains. Here on Lesson 53 in A Course in Miracles, we're reading from the Foundation for Inner Peace version of A Course in Miracles this year. And this is for Lesson 53, Saturday, February the 22nd of 2025. So it's a review lesson. Review Lesson 53, which is review of Lessons 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. I am upset because I see a meaningless world. So those thoughts that we learned yesterday, or we talked about yesterday, are private thoughts, the ones that we don't share with the universe, with God. They're making a meaningless world. And because they make that meaningless world, I'm upset because I see a meaningless world. I keep trying to make meaning for it, and I just get myself deeper and deeper into mud, into trouble, and kind of like I stepped off the road, off the trail a bit, and I sunk down to my belt in snow. Well, that's what it's kind of like when you're trying to figure things out on your own. It just gets deeper and deeper until finally you say, okay, I give up. I just want to ask God for guidance. And that's what we want to learn to do more and more, quicker and quicker. That way we're not upset because we see a meaningless world. But Lesson 12, I am upset because I see a meaningless world. A meaningless world engenders fear. It doesn't produce love, it produces fear. But God did not create a meaningless world. My thoughts are images that I have made. You know, he said to have no graven images. No images. Don't have an image that's different from reality. We need to learn to step away from our private thoughts and join the thoughts that we share with God. Okay, we'll come back and read the entirety of it and close with one of your 2-minute practice periods at the end of our time together. Let's go take a look in our text reading, and we're ready for, in chapter 7, the gifts of the kingdom, Roman numeral 4, healing as the recognition of truth. Truth can only be recognized and need only be recognized. Inspiration is of the Holy Spirit, and certainty is of God according to His laws. Both, therefore, come from the same source, since inspiration comes from the voice for God, and certainty comes from the laws of God. Healing does not come directly from God, whom knows His creations as perfectly whole. Yet healing is still of God because it proceeds from His voice and from His laws. It is their result in a state of mind that does not know Him. The only way that you can ever be sick and need healing is that you forgot your oneness with God. So in that state where we don't know Him, we need God to restore us. The state is unknown to Him and therefore does not exist. But those who sleep are unaware. Because they are unaware, they do not know. Paragraph 2. Let's go back and let's look at that paragraph 1 just a little bit closer. Healing is still of God. Healing does not come directly from God, who knows his creations as perfectly whole. Yet healing is still of God because it proceeds from his voice and from his laws. It is their result in a state of mind that does not know him. The state is unknown to God and therefore does not exist. But those who sleep are unaware. Because they are unaware, they do not know. Paragraph 2. The Holy Spirit must work through you to teach you. He is in you. This is an intermediary step towards the knowledge. Let me read that again. This is an intermediary step toward the knowledge that you are in God because you are part of him. The miracles the Holy Spirit inspires can have no order of difficulty because every part of creation is of one order. This is God's will and yours. The laws of God establish this, and the Holy Spirit reminds you of it. When you heal, you're remembering the laws of God and forgetting the laws of the ego. Wow, when we heal, we're forgetting the laws of God. And what's it say? The laws of God established. Let's back up. The miracles the Holy Spirit inspires can have no order of difficulty because every part of creation is of one order. This is God's will and yours. The laws of God establish this, and the Holy Spirit reminds you of it. When you heal, you're remembering the laws of God and forgetting the laws of the ego. I said before that forgetting is merely a way of remembering better. It is therefore not the opposite of remembering when it is properly perceived. Perceived improperly, it induces a perception of conflict with something else, as all incorrect perception does. Properly perceived, it can be used in a way out of conflict, as all proper perception can. Paragraph 3. The ego does not want to teach everyone all it has learned, because that would defeat its purpose. Therefore, it does not really learn at all. The Holy Spirit teaches you to use what the ego has made to teach the opposite of what the ego has learned. The kind of learning is as irrelevant as is the particular ability that was applied to the learning. All you need to do is make the effort to learn. All you need to do is make the effort to learn. For the Holy Spirit has a unified goal for the effort. If different abilities are applied long enough to one goal, the abilities themselves become unified. This is because they are channelized in one direction and in one way. Ultimately, then, they all contribute to one result, and by so doing, their similarity, rather than their differences, is emphasized. 4. All abilities should therefore be given over to the Holy Spirit, who understands how to use them properly. He uses them only for healing, because he knows you only as whole. By healing, you learn of wholeness, and by learning of wholeness, you learn to remember God. Everything's connected to its creator, the wholeness of God. You have forgotten him, but the Holy Spirit understands your forgetting must be translated into a way of remembering. 5. The ego's goal is as unified as the Holy Spirit's, and it is because of this that their goals can never be reconciled in any way or to any extent. The ego always seeks to divide and separate. The ego always seeks to divide and separate. The Holy Spirit always seeks to unify and heal. unify, and heal, is the Holy Spirit's work. As you heal, you are healed. As you heal, you are healed, because the Holy Spirit sees no order of difficulty in healing. Healing is the way to undo the belief in differences being the only way of perceiving the sonship as one. This perception is therefore in accord with the laws of God, even in a state of mind that is out of accord with His. The strength of right perception is so great that it brings the mind into accord with His, because it serves His voice, which is in all of you. That last sentence again. The strength of right perception is so great that it brings the mind into accord with God's, because it serves God's voice, the Holy Spirit, which is in all of you. 6. To think you can oppose the will of God is a real delusion. The ego believes that it can, and that it can offer you its own will as a gift. You do not want it. You don't want the ego's will. It is not a gift. It is nothing at all. It's meaningless. God has given you a gift that you both have and are. When you do not use it, you forget that you have it. By not remembering it, you do not know what you are. Healing, then, is a way of approaching knowledge by thinking in accordance with the laws of God and recognizing their universality. Without this recognition, you have made the laws meaningless to you. Yet the laws are not meaningless, since all meaning is contained by them and in them. And paragraph 7, last paragraph. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, because that is where the laws of God operate truly. And they can operate only truly because they are the laws of truth. And of course, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven that's something Jesus had said, recorded in Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. So again, on this first sentence of paragraph 7, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, because that is where the laws of God operate truly. And they can operate only truly because they are the laws of truth. But seek this only, because you can find nothing else. There is nothing else. God is all in a very literal sense. God is all in a very literal sense. All being is in Him who is all being. You are therefore in Him, since your being is His. Healing is the way of forgetting the sense of danger the ego has induced in you by not recognizing its existence in your brother. So we've got to start not seeing the ego in our brothers and looking beyond, even if they think it's their reality. We don't have to give credence to it. We can look right beyond it and see the holiness that never did depart from them. Healing is a way of forgetting the sense of danger the ego has induced in you by not recognizing its existence in your brother. This strengthens the Holy Spirit in both of you, because it is a refusal to acknowledge fear. Love needs only this invitation. It comes freely to all the sonship. It comes freely to all the sonship, being what the sonship is. By your awakening to it, you are merely forgetting what you are not. This enables you to remember what you are. Wow. We got to forget what we thought we were, that's not us, our private thoughts that are separate from each other, and realize that our universality, the thoughts that connect us all with each other, that make us one, that's our reality. in God, in love, in oneness, in unity. Okay, let's see. Let's take a look at what's going on around the world before we go back and look at our lesson for today, 53. I could just quickly, he wants us to see the relationship between the ideas. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world, and I'm upset because I see a meaningless world. Because a meaningless world engenders fear. But God did not create a meaningless world. My thoughts are images I have made. And that's our review. We'll read the little paragraphs with each one here in just a moment. But before we do, let's see what's going on around the world. I couldn't find any religious holidays anywhere around the world today. Not that there aren't any, I just couldn't find any. But out of holidays and observances, Be Humble Day, I thought, well, that one deserves a mention. We ought to learn to be humble. The Course talks about let our egos be humble so that our spirits can be themselves. It reminds me also of in the Bible where Jesus says, the meek shall inherit the earth. And then the Course in Miracles adds to that and says, they will literally take it over because of their strength. So let's take heart. We're going to take over the earth in a beautiful way because of our humility, our meekness, our stepping back and letting God lead the way. That's what I see as meekness and humility. Cook a sweet potato day. That would be a nice day to cook a sweet potato. Wildlife Day. And it's actually the crocodile hunter Steve Irwin's birthday's today, and that's what became known as Wildlife Day. He was born on this day in, what day was he born? I don't know. I didn't write it down. So anyway, Steve Irwin's birthday. Happy birthday, Steve Irwin. Thanks for inspiring us all to observe wildlife. Recreational Sports and Fitness Day. Single Tasking Day. That's I had to put that one down. There's a lot of other ones that I'm not telling you about. But I'll put them in the description below if you want to read all of them that holidays and observances mentioned. But I wanted to mention my grandfather, Bernard Julius Hebank. BJ is what the name he went by. He was born in Indian Territory, and he was kind of a single tasking type man. Well, if I'd say, Grandpa, what would and I'd ask him a question, and he would usually sit down before he'd answer the question. And sometimes he'd stand up, but he wouldn't do anything else. He'd look me straight in the eye, and he'd answer the question till he felt like that he thought I was satisfied with the answer. And he told me many times, he said, only do one thing at a time. So when I grew up and they started talking about multitasking, I didn't even think that was a good idea. I'd been trained to only do one thing at a time. And I'm kind of that way. If anybody asks me to do something, like if I'm talking on the phone and I'm driving, I'll go right past my exits. Ask Jessica, she can tell you that. Anyway, if I'm doing anything, I usually have to do one thing at a time. So single tasking day is a day for me for sure. I'm not much of a multitasker. Not that I'm saying that's necessarily bad. There's different ways of living. This is my grandfather really drove it in deep to me to do one thing at a time and give your full attention to it. And World Thinking Day. I think also that was a Girl Scout little honorable day. And I think it's also, I remember seeing that it's Scouts Founders Day. So anyway, World Thinking Day. I think we ought to use our minds to recover our lost inheritance. If you don't use your mind for finding God and finding your eternal happiness, you're not using your mind for much good anyway. Okay, and out of edible landscaping, we've got another no, it's not a vaccinium. It's a huckleberry, but it's a Galecia brachycera. is the genus and species. I'll put it in the description below. But it's the whortleberry, also known as buried treasure native box huckleberry, and that buried is spelled Berried, buried treasure, buried treasure native box huckleberry. And let me see if I can get my hear what it says of it. That the whortleberry, or the buried treasure native box huckleberry, is a low shrub with branches that rise to about 12 to 18 inches from underground, creeping stems known as rhizomes. Its glossy, leathery leaves lack the resinous dots of other huckleberries, and it holds its leaves year-round while the others are deciduous. Its flowers, white or pinkish, are bell-shaped. Fruits are similar to blueberries, but have fewer, larger seeds. Boxed huckleberry is on the Pennsylvania threatened plant species list, zones 5 through 7. So it sounds like you'd be, if you grew it, you'd be kind of helping an endangered plant. Okay, now let's go take a look at our lesson 53. And I'm trying to get things so if the wind comes up, things kind of stay put. And I don't know if I said for sure, but I like to really let you know, thank you so much for joining me out here in the mountains, studying A Course in Miracles. Okay, lesson 53. Let's read it now. There's only 5 paragraphs, 1 paragraph for each of the reviews, and we want to try to see how they kind of relate together. Today we will review the following. Lesson 11, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Since the thoughts of which I am aware do not mean anything, the world that pictures them can have no meaning. What is producing this world is insane, and so is what it produces. Reality is not insane. Are we gonna blow away here? Reality is not insane, and I have real thoughts as well as insane ones. I can therefore see a real world if I look to my real thoughts as my guide for seeing. So let's be sure that we learn to look to our real thoughts for our guide to seeing, which is basically see love in yourself and your brothers. See the oneness, how we're all to get connected. Lesson 12, I'm upset because I see a meaningless world. Insane thoughts are upsetting. They produce a world in which there is no order anywhere. Only chaos rules a world that represents chaotic thinking, and chaos has no laws. I cannot live in peace in such a world. I am grateful that this world is not real, and that I need not see it at all unless I choose to value it. And I do not choose to value what is totally insane and has no meaning. And lesson 13, a meaningless world engenders fear. The totally insane engenders fear because it is completely undependable and offers no grounds for trust. Nothing in madness is dependable. It holds out no safety and no hope, but such a world is not real. I have given it the illusion of reality and have suffered from my belief in it. Now I choose to withdraw this belief and place my trust in reality. In choosing this, I will escape all the effects of the world of fear because I am acknowledging that it does not exist. Wow, just acknowledge that the world of fear it's not even real. God did not create a meaningless world. Lesson 14 review. God did not create a meaningless world. How can a meaningless world exist if God did not create it? He is the source of all meaning, and everything that is real is in His mind. It is in my mind too, because He created it with me. Why should I continue to suffer from the effects of my own insane thoughts when the perfection of creation is my home? Let me remember the power of my decision and recognize where I really abide. And our last review, lesson 15. My thoughts are images that I have made. Whatever I see reflects my thoughts. You have ego thoughts, you see a world separate, and you'll have that kind of world manifest. Whatever I see reflects my thoughts. We want to start seeing God in everything, love in everything. It is my thoughts that tell me where I am and what I am. The fact that I see a world in which there is suffering and loss and death shows me that I'm seeing only the representation of my insane thoughts, and am not allowing my real thoughts to cast their beneficent light on what I see. Yet God's way is sure. The images I have made cannot prevail against Him, because it is not my will that they do so. My will is His, and I will place no other gods before Him. Let's not have an idol. Okay, how are we looking on time? Well, looks like we have just about enough time to sing our song together and have a 2-minute practice period. So if you want to close your eyes when I'm doing it, you can have one of your 2 minutes right now. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. I am upset because I see a meaningless world. A meaningless world engenders fear, engenders fear. God did not create a meaningless world. My thoughts are images I have made. Let's do it again. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. I am upset because I see a meaningless world. A meaningless world engenders fear, engenders fear. God did not create a meaningless world. My thoughts are images I have made. My meaningless thoughts are showing my meaningless world. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And I'm upset because I see a meaningless world. A meaningless world engenders fear, engenders fear. But God did not create a meaningless world. My thoughts are images that I have made. My thoughts are images I have made. And our word for peace today is from the Brahui people of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, that area. And the word, if I'm pronouncing it right, is âsûdaî, âsûdaî. So we'll go with âsûdaî until someone lets me know there's a better way to say it. âsûdaî.